Yeah, welcome to this class. I want to officially welcome everyone to this class. And today we'll be talking about quality analysis in control systems, quality analysis and qualitative analysis and control system. So we'll be looking at qualitative analysis and operation research, qualitative analysis and operation research. Now, to go into discuss what do we understand by qualitative analysis? What can we get from qualitative analysis? So we'll be establishing the fact and looking at what qualitative analysis is all about. Now, when we look, another way we'll be also looking at in this course, qualitative data analysis. Qualitative data analysis is a range of processes and procedures where we move from one qualitative data that have been collected into some forms of explanation, understanding or interpretation of people and situations we are investigating. Qualitative data analysis is the range. Qualitative data analysis is the range Qualitative data analysis, QDA, is a range of processes and procedures whereby we move from one qualitative data that have been collected into some forms of explanation, understanding, or interpretation of the people and situations we are investigating. Qualitative data analysis is usually based on an interpretative philosophy. Now, the idea in qualitative data analysis is to determine the meaningful and symbolic content of qualitative data. The meaningful and symbolic content of qualitative data. Now, approaches in analysis. We have the deductive approach, that is using your research questions to group the data and then look for similarities and differences. It's also used when time and resources are limited. It is also used when qualitative research is a smaller component of a larger quantitative study. We also, another approach in analysis is the inductive approach. Now, the inductive approach is used when qualitative research is a major design of the inquiry. Two, it is used when emergent framework to group the data and then look for a relationship. Now, the points of focus in analyzing test data: the primary message content. Two, the evaluative attitude of the speaker towards the message. Three, whether the content of the message is meant to represent individuals or group shared ideas. And lastly, the degree to which the speaker is representing actual versus hypothetical experience. And let's look at the qualitative and quantitative data analysis. Now, quantitative data analysis, qualitative data analysis. Now, qualitative begin with more general open-ended questions. moving towards greater precision as more information emerged. Now, in quantitative, the key explanatory and outcome variable is defined in advance. Now, in qualitative, the predefined variables are not identified in advance, while in the other one, the contextual confounding variables identified and controlled. In qualitative, preliminary analysis is an inherent part, while in quantitative, data collection and analysis distinctly separate phases. Analysis used formal statistical procedures. Now, the tools that can help in analytical process. One, summaries. Now, this should contain the key points that emerge from undertaking the specific activities. The summary should come out from the key point that emerge from should contain the key point that emerge from undertaking a specific activity. Step memos. So it allows you to make a record of the ideas which occur to you about any aspect of your research as you think of them. So the set memos allows you to make a record of the ideas which occurs to you about any aspect of your research as you think about them. Then that's you make use of the research diary. Now, the terms used in qualitative data analysis. One, we'll talk about the theory. The theory is a set of interrelated concepts, definitions, and propositions that gives a systematic view of events or situations by specifying relations among variables. The theme, it is an idea categories. It is an idea categories that emerge from grouping of lower level data points. Then you have the characteristic. The characteristic is a single item or event in a text. It is similar to an individual response to a variable or indicator in a quantitative research. This is the smallest unit of analysis. Then you have the coding. The coding is a process of attaching labels to lines of text so that the researcher can group and compare similar or related pieces of information. Now, the coding source. This is a compilation of similarly coded blocks of text from different sources into a single file or report. Now, when we talk about the indexing is a process that generates a word list comprising all the substantive words and their location within text entered in a program. Now, the principle of qualitative data analysis, the principle is one, people differ in their experience and understanding of reality. One of the principles is that the principle of qualitative data analysis knows that or understand that people differ in their experience and understanding of reality. Two, a social phenomenon can't be understood outside its own context. A social phenomenon can't be understood outside its own context. And number three, qualitative research can be used to describe phenomenon or generate theory grounded on data. Qualitative research can be used to describe phenomenon or generate theory grounded on data. Number four, understanding human behavior emerges slowly and non-linearly. Understanding human behavior emerges slowly and non-linearly. And number five, exceptional cases may yield insight into a problem or new ideas for further inquiries. Exceptional cases may yield insights into a problem or new ideas for further inquiry. Now, the features of qualitative data analysis. One, analysis is circular and not linear. The features of qualitative data analysis is number one, Analysis is circular and not linear. 2, iterative and progressive. Analysis is iterative and progressive. 3, it closes interaction with the data. 3, it closes interaction with the data. 4, data collection and analysis is simultaneous. Data collection and analysis is simultaneous. And 5, level of analysis varies. The level of analysis varies. 6, uses infection, that is, this was good, uses infection. And 7, it can be sorted in many ways. And lastly, qualitative data by itself has meaning. Qualitative data by itself has meaning. Now, noticing, collecting, and thinking model. This is the noticing, collecting, and thinking model. Noticing, collecting, and thinking model. This is it here, the noticing, collecting, and thinking model. The thinking about things, collecting things, then notice things. The process of qualitative data analysis. Step one is organize the data. Now we put the data together, put them in an organized form, not in leaving them in disorganized form. So they must all be organized or well grouped. So organize the data to identify the framework. Identify the framework. Number 2, you identify the framework. 3, sort data into frame. Now put the data into frame. That is, sort data into frame. Now 4, use the framework for descriptive. Use the framework for descriptive analysis. Use the framework for descriptive analysis. Use the framework for descriptive analysis. That's step number 5. Step number 4, I say use the framework for descriptive analysis. Step number 5, second order analysis. Second order analysis. Second order analysis. Second order analysis. Step number 5, second order analysis. So now I said number 1, the process of qualitative data analysis. Number 1 is organize the data. 2, identify framework. Then 3, sort data. 3, sort data into framework. Sort data into framework. 4, use the framework for descriptive analysis. 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 And 5, second order analysis. 5, second order analysis. 5, second order analysis. Now let's go after it step by step. Now organize the data. That is, transcribe the data. You can use hyper transcribe software. Translate the data. You can use language translation software like Systran. Then data cleaning. Label the data. That's structuring and familiarizing. Identifying a framework. Now read. Identify a framework, explanatory, guided by the research question. So a framework guided by the research question, guided by the data. Framework with structure, label, and define data. Framework is equal to coding plan. Now sort data into framework. That is, code the data, modify the framework, data entry if use computer package. Use framework in descriptive analysis. Descriptive analysis, that is the range of responses in categories. The range of responses in categories to identify recurrent theme. Identify recurrent theme. Identify recurrent theme. Identify recurrent theme. Range of responses in categories. In categories. And identify recurrent theme. Identify recurrent theme. Now, second order analysis. Second order analysis. Now, if you are working on explanatory research, you can stop here. But if not, you can proceed further. Now, second order analysis, it identifies recurrent themes. It identifies recurrent themes. It notices pattern in the data. It identifies respondent clusters and search for casualty, identify related themes. Now, build sequence of events. It builds sequence of events. It search data to answer research questions and develop hypotheses and tests. Types of qualitative analysis: 1. Content analysis. 2. Narrative analysis. 3. Discourse analysis. 4. Framework analysis. And 5. Grounded theory. The types of qualitative analysis are content analysis, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, framework analysis, and grounded theory. Content analysis is the procedure for the categorization of verbal or behavioral data for the purpose of classification, summarization, and tabulation. Content analysis is the procedure for categorization of verbal or behavioral data for the purpose of classification, summarization, and tabulation. The content can be analyzed on two levels. Content in analysis, the content can be analyzed in two levels or on two levels. 1, descriptive and interpretative. Now, the descriptive is what is the data. Then the interpretative is what was meant by the data. The narrative analysis are transcribed experience. They are transcribed experience. Every interview observation has narrative aspect. The researcher has to sort out and reflect up on them, enhance them, and present them in a revised shape to the reader. The core activity in narrative analysis is to reformulate stories presented by people in different contexts and based on their different experiences. Discourse analysis is a method of analyzing a naturally occurring talk and all types of written text. It focused on ordinary people method of producing and making sense of everyday social life. Now, how language is used is in everyday situation. Some people express themselves in a simple and straightforward way. Some people express themselves vaguely and indirectly. Analysts must refer to the context when interpreting the message, as the same phenomenon can be described in a number of different types depending on the context. Framework analysis: familiarization, transcribing, and reading the data. Identifying a thematic framework, that is initial coding framework, which is developed both from a priori issue and from emergent issues. Coding is using numerical or textual code to identify specific piece of data which corresponds to different themes. Charting is created using headings from thematic framework, and mapping and interpretation is searching for patterns, associations, concept, and explanation in the data. Grounded theory also is analytic induction. It starts with an examination of single case from a predefined population in order to formulate a general statement about a population, a concept, or an hypothesis. Then the analyst examines another case to see whether it fits the statement. If it does, a further case is selected, and if it does not fit, there are two options. Now, the two options are either the statement is changed to fit both cases, or the definition of the population is changed in such a way that the cases is no longer a member of the newly defined population. Another case is selected, and the process continues. In such a way, one should be able to arrive at the statement that fits all cases of population as defined. This method is only for the limited set of analytic problems, those that can be solved with some general overall statement. Strategies for analyzing observations. One, chronology. The strategies for analyzing observation, one is the chronology. It talks about what was observed chronologically over time to tell the story from the beginning to the end. Then two, the key events. The key events describing critical incidents or major events, not necessarily in order of occurrence, but in order of importance. Three, various settings. Describe various places, sites, setting, or location in which events or behaviors of interest happened. People, describing individuals or group involved in the event. And process, talking about the important processes that e.g. control recruitment, decision making, specialization, communication. Then issues, that is illuminating key issues, showing key issues. How did participants changed? So quality in qualitative studies. Now the quality in qualitative studies were the criteria, the issues, the solution. Now the credibility is true value, issue is true value, solution prolonged and persistent. And we can see the table on the screen. Now let's look at writing a qualitative report. Writing a qualitative report. Writing a qualitative report. So we're going to be treating writing a qualitative report. Writing a qualitative report. Sorry, my screen. Now, when we're talking about qualitative reports, we'll talk about the interest. The interest is there. When talking about writing a qualitative report, we talk about the interest is there. The interest is there, and we'll come to that soon. Come to that, and we are going to have it. For now, sorry, my screen is a little bit dark. Let me make it brighter so we all could see it. Never knew it went dark this way. I thought I was doing the right thing. Okay, I think we are good to go. Okay, just a minute. Few more to go, and we'll be done. Let me make it visible so we could see. Okay, I think that'll be all. Okay. Now, writing qualitative reports. Qualitative research generates rich information, thus deciding where to focus and the level of sharing in every challenge, or the level of sharing is very challenging. The level of sharing is very challenging. The level of sharing is very challenging. So it's very challenging. Getting ready to write. Now, it must come close to the point of maturation. Be aware of resource constraints and sponsor interests. Organize your materials, list of codes, summary devices, the table, the thematic, the structure. Write a chronicle, that is writing it out of your head. choosing a style and focus, the format, the research reports, the scientific research articles, reports to donor, field reports, evaluation reports. Then another is focus. Under focus, we look at the academics, the conceptual framework or theories, methodologies and interpretations. Practitioners, the concrete suggestion for better practice, policy recommendation. And lay readers, problem solving, reform on practice or policies. Variation in the report format, problem solving approach, as problem based. Narrative approach is chronological. The policy approach is evidence based, and analytic approach is theory or conceptual framework based. Now, in reporting qualitative analysis, you use quotes, typical use of quotes from data. You use quotes from data, the descriptive, direct link with data, credibilities. Now, ways to use quotes, illustrative, range of issues, opposing views. Then link range of issues, list range of issues, rank or sequence issues. Describe types of behaviors, strategies, experiences, report proportion, flow diagram, decision making, event sequencing, etc. Interpretation is the act of identifying and explaining core meaning of the data, organizing and connecting emerging themes, sub-theme and contradiction to get the bigger picture, what it all means. Think how best to integrate data from multiple sources and methods. Make generalization, providing answers to questions of social and theoretical significance, ensuring credible or trustworthy interpretations. Standard report format. Now let's look at the standard report format. We talk about the introduction. We talk about the introduction in standard report format. We talk about the introduction. Under the introduction, we look at the literature review, purpose of the study, brief description of the study, that is, who did the study, where and when, description of relevant cultural and contextual information. Number 2 is the methods, that is study design, sampling method, data collection method, data analysis method. Then results, that presentation, interpretation relate to relevant conceptual framework, discuss methodological difficulties affecting your result. And the conclusion talks about the key findings, logical next step, and implication of findings. Then brings us to recommendation. It talks about or relate to policy or practice. Then we have the acknowledgement and the references. Now let's come over now to operation research. Operation research. So let's start with the definition of operation research. Let's go with the definition of operation research. Operation research is the scientific study of operations for the purpose of making better decisions. Operation research is the scientific study of operations for the purpose of making better decisions. Operation research is the scientific study of operations for the purpose of making better decisions. Operations research is an art and science. Operations research is an art and science. Operation research is a science which deals with problem formulation, solution, and finally appropriate decision making. It is most often used to analyze complex real-life problems, typically with the goal of improving or optimizing performance. Operation research, operation is the activity carried out in an organization. Operation is the activity carried out in an organization, while research is the process of observation and testing characterized by the scientific method, situation, problem statement, model construction, validation, experimentation, candidate solution. Therefore, now operation research is a quantitative approach to decision making based on the scientific method of problem solving. Now, from the definition of operations and research, we can now say operational research is a quantitative approach to decision making based on the scientific method of problem solving. Operational research is a scientific approach to execute decision making which consists of the art of mathematical modeling of complex situations, the science of the development of solution techniques used to solve the models, the ability to effectively communicate the result to the decision maker. Now, the terminologies we might be using in operational research, the British European refers to operational research, to refer to it as operational research, the American to operational research, but both are often short into OR. So the British and the European recognizes it as operational research. The Americans recognize it as operational research. Then they both shortened it to OR. So when you see OR in my write-up, I'm actually talking about operation research. Another term used for this field is management science. Another term used for operational research is management science. In the US, is OR and MS are combined together to form OR-MS. So in the US, they combine it together, the OR and the MS. Another term sometimes used are industrial engineering and decision science. So operational research can also be called industrial engineering and decision science. Let's look at the brief history of OR, operational research. Now, the OR has been existing as a science since 1930s when it began in a systematic way. Now, but as a formal discipline, operational research originated by the effort of military planners during the World War II. So, as a formal discipline, now operational research was known or came fully into recognition during the World War II, and this was by the effort of the military planner. Now, 70 years ago, it would have been possible to study mathematics, physics, or engineering at universities. It would not have been possible to study operation research. In the decades after World War II, the techniques began to be applied more widely in problems of business, industries, and society. Since the time, operational research has expanded into a field widely used in industries, ranging from petrochemical to airlines, finances, logistics, and government. It has become an area of active academic and industrial research. OR has become an area of active and industrial research, active activities and industrial research. The techniques of OR have been applied and proven in many industries under different names. Let's take, for example, the lean in manufacturing, supply chain in logistics, and yield management in airlines. Now, the problem solving and decision making, the 7 steps of problem solving. Now, the first 5 are the process of decision making. Now, the number 1, identify and define the problem. To solve any problem, first you have to identify the problem and identify and define the problem. Now, for example, let's take for example, you go to the hospital for a checkup, or you're feeling somehow, you went to the hospital to meet the doctors, and the doctors ask you what's wrong, you explain yourself. Now, in the process of explanation, the doctors ask you 1 or 2 questions. What are they doing? They're trying to identify the problem you are explaining to them and identify it. Number 2, determine the set of alternative solutions. So when they have been able to identify and define the problems, they do prefer or prescribe drugs that will take care of the problems for you. 3, determine the critical for evaluating the alternatives. Determine the critical for evaluating the alternative. 4, evaluate the alternatives. And 5, choose an alternative. Choose an alternative. Then number 6, implement the choosing alternative. When you choose an alternative, the next thing is for you to implement the alternative. The next thing is for you to implement the alternative. Number 7, evaluate the results. Number 7, evaluate the results. Number 7, evaluate the results. So this is a chart of management science approach. Identification of a problem that exists in the system or organization. So this is the chart. This is the chart. This is the chart. This is the chart. So we have the observation, problem definition, model construction, solution, interpretation. That is the information. Interpretation is the information. So this is the management science approach. The management science approach. Now, from that chart, we're looking at identify and define the problem. Identify and define the problem. Identify and define the problem. Now, right solution cannot be obtained from the wrong problem. The first and most important stage of the work is defining the problem well. This phase helps examine the problem at hand quantitatively. So this phase helps identify the problem, examine the problems at hand quantitatively. Now, determine the set of alternative solutions. Development of the functional mathematical relationships that describes decision variables, objective functions, constraints of the problems, and non-negativity condition. So, determine the criteria for evaluating the alternative. Give a good solution. Giving a good solution must be measurable, or a good solution must be measurable, easy to implement, and sustainable. To determine effectiveness of proposed solution, two designs are used. To determine effectiveness of proposed solution, two designs are used. One, the quasi-experimental design, comparison of situations before the and after the solution. B, the true experiment, comparison of outcome with experimental and control groups. The evaluate alternative. This phase obtains an optimal solution for the model by using various techniques. Now, these techniques include linear programming problem, LPP, transportation problem, TP, assignment problems, simulation problems, etc. Simulation problems, etc. Model development. Models are representations of real objects or situations. Forms of models are: 1, ionic models are physical replica, the scalar representation of real objects. Then we have analog models. These are physical in form, but do not physically resemble the object being modeled. Then 3, mathematical model. It represents real-world problem through a system of mathematical formulas and expressions based on key assumptions, estimates, or statistical analysis. Choosing an alternative, testing of the model solutions. Before the application of the model solution, the validity of the model and reliability of the solution should be tested. Validity of the model can be decided by comparing its output with the results of the past, Then the implementation, this is a solution to a problem, usually implies changes for some individuals in the organization. Implementation of the solution obtained from a validated model is a reliable solution to the real-life problems. So this is the chart. Features of OR1. The features of operational research or operational research is decision making. Decision making is one of the features of operation research. Decision making. Every industrial organization faces multifaceted problems to identify best possible solution to their problems. So the operational research aims to help the executives to obtain optimal solution with the use of operational research techniques. It also helps the decision maker to improve his creative and judicious capabilities analyze and understand the problem situation, leading to the better control, better coordination, better system, and finally better decision. Scientific approach applies scientific approach. Now, operational research applies scientific method, techniques, and tools for the purpose of analysis and solution of complex problems. In this approach, there is no place for guesswork and the person bias of the decision maker. System approach. The main aim of the system approach is to trace for each proposal all significant and indirect effect on all subsystems on a system and to evaluate each action in terms of effects for the system as a whole. The use of computers. The models of ORO, operation research, needs lots of computation, and therefore the use of computers become necessary. With the use of computers, it is possible to handle complex problems requiring large amount of calculations. The objectives of ORO: decision making and improve its quality. 2, identify optimum solution. 3, integrating the systems. 4, improve the objectivity of analysis. 5, minimize the cost and minimize the profits. 6, improve the productivity, success in competition and market leadership. The scope of operational research. The scope of operational research are: 1, national plan and budget. 2, healthcare services and national health programs. 3, government development and public sector units. 4, industrial establishment and private sector units. 5, national defense service. 6, research and development in engineering. 7, public works department. 8, business management. 9, agri and irrigation projects. 10, education and training. And 11, transport and communication. And the methods. Despite the number of technical labels, most projects of operational research apply one of the 3 broad group of methods. Now, 1, simulation methods, optimization method, data analysis method. So most of the organizations use one of these methods to achieve their aim. Simulation method gives ability to conduct sensitive study to search for improvement and test the improvement ideas that are being made. Optimization method is the goal is to enable the decision maker to identify and locate the very best choice where innumerable feasible choices are available, and comparing them is difficult. The data analysis. Here, the goal is to aid the decision maker in detecting actual patterns and interconnection in data sets and use of this analysis for making solutions. This method is very useful in public health. Components of ORO-based decision support system. One, we have the database. Talk of the nurse profiles, external resources rules. 2, graphical user interface, web-enabled user using Java or Visual Basic or VBA. Then algorithm, pre and post processor. Then what if analysis, and lastly report generators. Now, examples of operational research application. Now, the examples where ORO has been successful in recent years are the following: airline industries, that is the routing and flight plans, crew scheduling, revenue management. 2, the telecommunications, that network routing, queue control. 3, manufacturing industry, system throughput and bottleneck analysis, inventory control, production scheduling, capacity planning. 4, healthcare, that is hospitality management, facility design and transportation, traffic control, logistics, network flow. The application area of operational research are the strategic planning, supply chain management, pricing and revenue management, logistics and site location, optimization, marketing research, scheduling, portfolio management, inventory analysis, forecasting, sales analysis, auctioning, and risk analysis. So the British Airline Transportation Use Operation Research gets involved in a whole range of decisions, here starting with the whole booking process. So they used it. Then the ticket pricing also, operation research is used there in that place. Here are the steps in operation research study. Now, number one, in my chart here, you have the formulation, model building, then data collection, data analysis, coding, etc. Then the Procter and Gamble supply chain. Let's look at the problem. To ensure smart growth, P&G, we all know the P&G company, needed to improve its supply chain, streamline work process, drive out non-value added costs, and eliminate duplication. The strategic objectives and requirements that P&G recognized that there were potentially millions of feasible options for its 30 product strategy team to consider. Executive needed sound analytical support to realize P&G's goals within the tight 1-year objective. The model structure, the P&G Operation Research Department and the University of created decision-making model software. They followed a modeling strategy of solving two easier to handle sub problems, that distribution or location or production sources. Then we have the project value. So thank you all for listening to me in this class. So see you again.